Where's Johnny?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
It's so serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Okay, hello friends. Welcome back to Chasing the Gold podcast. I am Erica Richards and I have with me...
I'm Shadan Larkey.
And
I'm Will Bjarnar.
Yay!
Who interrupted you already?
Oh, no, it's fine. No, I wanted you to interrupt me and introduce yourself. Honestly, because I was afraid I was going to butcher your last name if I said it out loud. In my head, I was saying it correctly, but I was like, if this comes out, who knows what's going to come out.
No, it's excellent.
Anyways, we are really excited. I'm really excited. Obviously, you guys can tell because we are here to talk about Oscar nominations that were this morning, and so much happened. So, what's your guys' just like knee-jerk reaction, like off the cuff, really quickly?
Well, I want to start with you guys because unfortunately you weren't able to join me for the big nominations predictions that I did with Cameron. So like, what were some of the big swings that you guys took? What were some of the things that you were looking for this morning that maybe didn't pan out?
I know for me, and obviously we'll get more into this when we get into the actual nominations, but I thought for sure Jonathan Chu was going to make it in for Wicked, for directing. Obviously that didn't happen. And then I also, because I had just watched A Real Pain finally last night, the night before Oscar nominations, and loved it so much, I thought that was also going to show up in Best Picture, and it did not. So those were mine.
Yeah, I think A Real Pain is a pretty big surprise missing in picture, but it's not there for to make room for films like I'm Still Here and Nickel Boys, which I think is very exciting.
Very exciting, yes.
I think the thing about this year is I don't know if there weren't too many swings to be taken. I feel like a lot of the categories were, in terms of who was going to be nominated, we're coming down to, okay, here's the 3 or 4, and we have a 5 and a 6, and maybe there's a 6A and a 6B, but it really is interchangeable. Like if you look at Best Actor, Sebastian Stan, a lot of people thought he was going to be there for either one of his great performances this year in both A Different Man or The Apprentice. He ends up getting in for The Apprentice. That's over somebody like Daniel Craig in Queer. I don't think it was too big a swing to predict that Challengers might show up in original score, and that didn't happen. I'm a little baffled by that, but I didn't necessarily think Hard Truths was going to show up anywhere. I didn't necessarily think that September 5 was gonna be in the final Best Picture 10. I know a lot of people thought so, but for me, I'm more curious to discuss with you both the things that ended up getting in versus the things that missed. Because I don't know that there are that many things that missed that shock me, but there are things that excite me about what made it in.
Yeah, I agree with you, Will. I feel like with all of my nominations, like I had a reasoning for why I picked what I picked that was like backed up by some sort of statistic. You know what I mean? Like everything made sense to me in my brain. I have to tell you guys anecdotally, so I just moved to a new place, hence my white wall that I look like I'm in the middle of nowhere. But my mom she's staying with me to help me unpack and stuff. And I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do about supporting actress. I'm freaking out and all this stuff. And she like looks at me with this look of like genuine concern. And she's like, well, what happens if you get it wrong? And I was like, well, nothing. I just like to be right. Like she just like gave me this look of like basically go touch grass without actually. But I mean, supporting actress was probably the category where I was the most uncertain. And I ended up getting 3 out of 5. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, we're total nerds about this stuff, and like I have to remember sometimes, like normal people don't know what the heck we're talking about. But
I love that she said it like it was like a test you were taking in school. Like, well, what happens if you get it wrong?
She was like, what happens if you get it wrong?
I love that. I love that. That's super cute.
I did ended up getting it wrong. And but yeah, like I said, I had a reasoning for everything that I picked, and it was so sad. So I actually went through to the In Session Film website and took off, all the people that didn't make it in. And I was thinking about all the time that I spent like figuring out my 10, and the fact that I had to delete all the names just made me really sad. But here we are to phase 2, so that it's a new game begins.
Yeah,
it's you know what I think though, like part of being invested is part of like making the predictions and stuff. And then I don't know about you guys, but when I felt, because I like have a printed out ballot and I fill it out when I'm watching the Oscar or before the Oscars, and I always do 2 different color markers, and I circle like I have a color that's like what I think is gonna win, and then I have a color that's like this is what I want to win, because those don't always align, right? So I just think it puts more weight to it, right? Which is always fun. I think that's why we're all so invested. So
if you don't do that with the markers or the pens, what are you doing?
right.
Oh yeah, no, I think Amelia Perez is going to win here. Okay, moving on. No, check what you want.
Right.
I mean, not like anybody else cares, but it's fun for you.
It's important to you. Yes, exactly.
Been doing it since I was like 15.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and this has actually brought me to a caveat that I want to mention, which is like when we're talking about these nominations and predictions, which we'll get into later episodes, we're putting ourselves in the minds of Academy voters. It's not necessarily like, so if we say during this podcast, oh, such and such film was a surprise, we're not saying that film is undeserving. We're saying that based on the tea leaves, based on, the major precursor nominations, it was a surprise. It's not necessarily based on merit. I think depending on what your opinion is if it is based on merit, we would all have completely different lists.
Oh yeah.
So I just think that's, important to think about, that we're trying to put ourselves in somebody else's mindset, and it's not necessarily coming from, the 3 of us.
Certainly.
Okay, shall we get to the list?
Yes.
Okay, I will kick us off. For best documentary short subject, we have I Am Ready, Warden, Incident, Death by Numbers, The Only Girl in the Orchestra, and Instruments of a Beating Heart. Have you guys seen any of these yet?
I have only seen I Am Ready, Warden, which was very good. But did you either of you have like a full ballot of predictions that you had made?
Mm-mm.
No, I went for, not only the major categories. I definitely don't want to say that, but I haven't been able to delve into many of the short films that were shortlisted and ultimately nominated yet. I tend to do that once it's announced, and then I make my way through and feel like I can make a solid prediction. So I haven't gone there yet.
That's exactly what I do as well. Yeah.
So on the In Session Film website, there is a list of 10. And my goal was I want everything to be nominated to be on my list of 10. And this is the category that messed that up for me, because I had three out of the 5 I got right. The Only Girl in the Orchestra was in my 10, and then Instruments of a Beating Heart just came out of nowhere, because and this season I tried to, because it was my first season as the editor of Chasing Gold, I didn't want to like look at a lot of other punditry. I wanted sort of my opinions to come from myself, but the shorts was where I was like, I need some help. So I was like looking at what other people were predicting, and nobody else had this category. So I guess I shouldn't feel as bad, but that was probably one of the biggest shockers of the morning, because that just wasn't on my radar at all.
Yeah, I think it's just hard it's like not as accessible, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of the camp we're all living in. I don't know about you guys, but the local theater by me does like, I'm sure the Oscar like showcase, but they also do a day where they show all of the documentary shorts and the animated shorts and all that, and I feel like that's a nice way to give people access to these ones again once they're nominated. I always look forward to that.
I love attending those.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're incredibly valuable, and yeah, I think you made a good point. I don't even remember which one of you said it. It's late. But about there just being less access. I mean, for these particular titles, it seems to happen every year where something that's been produced by either the New York Times or the New Yorker. In this case, I know that 2 New Yorker short films were nominated. So those are made accessible just on their websites or on YouTube, on their channels. So those are very easy to watch. But then some of them, like I remember last year, Sean Wong's short film Nine and Wapo wasn't available until it was on Disney Plus, unless you had gotten a screener, and it was only on Disney Plus like a couple of weeks before the ceremony, or maybe at the beginning of January. I can't remember, but regardless, like the access thing is big when it comes to these categories. So I'm very thankful for those short film Oscar nominated showcases that many theaters tend to do these days.
And Nine Wapo and the short films from last year in general were some of my favorite things nominated at the Oscars generally. So like this year, I'm gonna definitely make a goal to see everything, which brings us to Best Animated Short, because a film that I was sure was going to win this category, A Bear Named Wojtek, was not even nominated at all. So that was another big shocker of the morning. But so our 5 nominees are Beautiful Men, Yuck, Wander to Wander, In the Shadow of Cypress, and Magic Candies.
Yeah, Rachel Sennett made a joke that Yuck is a Charlie XCX project. I don't think that's the case. I could be wrong, but
I did notice she said that. Yeah.
What did you guys think of, by the way, the Bowen Yang, Rachel Sennett announcements? I thought they had such fun chemistry together. I really liked it.
I love them.
They made me laugh.
Yeah, me too.
I
love them both.
I saw someone, a critic, actually. I'm not going to name who it was because I think they got put on blast. But a critic put up like it's pretty distasteful for or ridiculous or unprofessional or whatever for one of the stars of an eventual Best Picture nominee to be announcing the nominations, and that would be Bowen Yang, who's in Wicked. He is a side character in Wicked, so I don't know that it's necessarily that. I mean, he's passionate guy, passionate about the project. So be that as it may. It's just funny to look back to last year. Jack Quaid, who was like kind of featured prominently in Oppenheimer, was also announcing the nominations. So I just think it was funny that it was pointed out this year. But I thought they were fine. I thought they were probably a little tired and I don't know. I take this stuff very seriously. So then when it's like, hey, Best Animated Short Film, congrats to Charlie XCX, it's like, actually that was probably worked on, hand drawn by a bunch of people who are never going to be recognized for anything they ever make again. So maybe we don't joke about that, but whatever. I'm taking it far too seriously.
No. Well, not to mention their categories are constantly. I mean, they weren't were they in the main telecast last year? They put them one year. They put them in the commercials. I can't remember if they put them back last year or not. But can we please present all of our categories and show respect to all of these incredible artists, please?
No, I think that's a great point, though, because people who don't really know or follow but are just watching the nominations might think that was actually a project from, that wasn't like they might actually believe it, right? And we shouldn't be doing that. So that was a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of the categories were broadcasted at least last year. So I'm hoping that remains the case this year, especially now that we've removed Best Original Song performances from the show.
Yes.
I can't believe that. I didn't know about that until I saw, I don't know, a tweet or something that was like the performance of I'm Just Ken from last year. And it was like, we're never going to top this. So that's why they,
that is
it
correct.
Or whatever.
Apparently,
I'm gonna need them to bring it back for next year because Wicked for Good is going to have a nomination for one of the new songs. I'm
Well,
speaking it into existence.
They're using the time to honor the first responders in LA. So we'll see what that's going to look like.
Well, in that case, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Another thing they've announced that they're bringing back this year, which, by the way, guys, the ceremony is going to be March 2nd, Sunday, March 2nd. But another thing they're bringing back this year is having the five previous winners come announce each nominee. And then you'll have, like, your winners will come back as well. But that'll be interesting to see, like, what actor they're going to pair with what nominee that we got.
Yeah.
So, Will, would you like to take us to Best Live Action Short Film, please?
Sure. Yeah. Best Live Action nominees are The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent, Anuja, I'm Not a Robot, Alien, which was pronounced Alien on the nomination special this morning, and The Last Ranger. I have only seen Anuja out of these. And Shadan, I see you have it ranked as your second nominee on this list. I think it's quite good.
Yeah, it is really good. I do really like the Man Who Could Not Remain Silent, but Anuja is very good. Well, I need to finish the rest of the list, but I mean, this is a pretty good lineup from the two that I have seen.
Yeah, this again, everybody's kind of going blind when it comes to these, and it's not for lack of trying per se, but it's we need to get to the theater and be able to see all of them, and I'm excited to do that, and then be able to make a far more educated, not guess as who's going to win, but just be able to be all encompassing when it comes to the nominations. So if you've only listened this far in and you're like, these guys haven't even seen any of these movies, I promise that's not the case. We have, just not the live action, animated, or documentary shorts.
Not yet.
Not yet. Exactly. We will.
Yeah. Yes, we will. Okay, that leads us to Best Sound, where we have Wicked, Amelia Perez, A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, and The Wild Robot.
Erica, I'm going to need you to channel your inner Bowen Yang and remain neutral here, Miss Ma'am.
I think we all know where I'm at.
Maybe that ship has sailed. I have to, and The Wild Robot here is the big surprise. Yes, we can all agree. I did not have that. I had 4 of the 5. Yeah.
I love that it shows up here, though.
I guess I'm just wondering what Best Sound means anymore. The Wild Robot being here is awesome, but I mean, Dune Part 2 makes a lot of sense. I wasn't transfixed or blown away by the sound in any Wicked, Amelia Perez, or A Complete Unknown. This is normally where we get a bit of diversity in terms of the films nominated at the Oscars. I mean, sometimes, yes, there's a big, multi-nominated film that shows up here and even wins, like, say, Oppenheimer. But Steve McQueen's Blitz is by far the best showcase of how to work massive pieces of explosions and sound into a film and not make it not make it a star per se, but make it stand out. That not showing up here and films like it makes no sense to me, but whatever.
Well, okay, so on that note, we should mention, for those of you who don't follow these things as closely as we do, for the nominations part of the voting, the individual branches vote on. So, like, the sound, people will vote on sound, the actors will vote on actors, et cetera, and then everyone votes for picture. And then when we get to the winners, everybody votes for everything. So how much do you think that influences, what do you make of the fact that sound designers and sound technicians are the ones that picked these 5 nominees?
I feel like my answer remains the same. I can't recall a moment in any of those 3 movies I just named where I was like, ooh, really nice work there with the sound. Like, A Complete Unknown, I guess, in terms of the making it authentic to the time period when they were in any of the number of song performances at the folk festivals and any of the concerts. Amelia Perez, I don't know. This feels to me like best sound just got kind of moved into, okay, what movie made its music sound the best? And that's not what this category has historically been for. So I guess for me, I'm a little more, maybe this is my big opinion that I should have shared at the top of the podcast. I'm furious about best sound.
Fair enough.
This is not a trick question, Will, but what would you have preferred to see here? Like, what is there one that in your mind that you're like, oh, this to me is good sound and it should have shown up?
I mean, I mentioned Blitz. I think Challengers would have also been a good choice here. I think that between everything that film does in the tennis, literally, is excellent. I mean, Furiosa makes a lot of sense with how they worked in vehicles. I mean, a deep cut would have been something like Evil Does Not Exist, but I'm not going to go that far. I don't know, even something like Trap. Interworking the concert with Josh Hartnett traveling through hallways, listening in his earpiece. They've started to do this interesting thing over the last couple of years with the telecast where they specifically isolate the sounds that you hear throughout the movie. And I think there are a lot of movies soundtracks, if you will, that I would have preferred to hear over the nominees here. Dune and The Wild Robot not necessarily withstanding, because I think those two films are pretty deserving here. And I'm not saying the others aren't. I just can't, off the top of my head, recall a moment in those films. Maybe I can think of something in Wicked. I'm
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Will.
I am going, if Erica is going to remain true to herself, I'm going to remain true to myself. Wasn't a fan. That's okay.
You can stay.
Thanks so much.
We're
still
friends, Will. We're still
yes,
friends.
of course.
I do. Before
my girlfriend and her sister loved Wicked, and I bit my tongue all the way home. Okay.
Before we get too into the pod, I do want to mention our nominations tally here because Amelia Perez, as has been all season long, was the leader. Led the Golden Globes, led BAFTA. 13 nominations, guys. The most for any international film ever. Shattered the previous record, which was 10. And 13 is the second highest total of all time. Something to keep in mind there.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
You're good. The Brutalist with 10, Wicked with 10, A Complete Unknown, a film that I underestimated to my own failure and idiocracy here, with 8, Conclave with 8, Nora with 6, Dune Part 2 with 5, The Substance with 5, Nosferatu with 4, I'm Still Here with 3, Sing Sing 3, The Wild Robot 3, The Apprentice 2, Flow 2, Nickel Boys 2, and finally A Real Pain with 2. So not much of a spread here. What do we make of that?
Just want to share a quick stat that has been going around on Twitter or X or whatever the heck you want to call it. Sean Fennessy from The Ringer and the Big Picture podcast tweeted this, and I've seen it elsewhere. The 13 nominations for Amelia Perez is the second most for any film ever, tying Gone with the Wind, From Here to Eternity, Mary Poppins, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Forrest Gump, Shakespeare in Love, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Chicago, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, The Shape of Water, and Oppenheimer. What do all of those films have in common? Nothing, because Amelia Perez is also in the category. Anyway, moving on. That's all I have to say about that. In terms of parody, I don't know.
Yeah, and do either of you watch Severance?
Yes.
Of course.
Okay, so you know how in Severance, like the whole thing is if the numbers are scary or if they make you feel scary.
Yeah.
That's whenever you're reading that list, the only thing I could think of was like this list makes me feel like afraid.
I feel like Amelia Perez is the new Green Book, but like in a different way, the same way, but in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, we can get further into that. Okay, so now
we'll talk about
we
it
should
later.
talk about best makeup and hairstyling, another category which I think maybe there was some room for more inspired choices.
Seriously.
So we have The Substance, Wicked, Amelia Perez, Nosferatu, and A Different Man. Two big shockers here for me. Dune Part 2 vastly underperformed today. I think we should say not getting into makeup and hairstyling, given that, we saw the Harkonnens and that whole world and all of the design that went into that. It was really shocking to me. And also, having nominations for Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong, but not getting the apprentice into hair and makeup was interesting for me. That was kind of a swing that I took just because I was like, usually, the actors are paired with hair and makeup, and I just didn't see how that film was going to get those two nominations without it. So that was a bit of a surprise, and to see something like Amelia Perez here instead was a bit of a shocker.
Yeah,
I would say.
I don't understand why it's there at all, but yeah, I don't. I don't know what I honestly don't. I don't understand why it's there.
I'm having a hard day.
Yeah. Do we think that because we mentioned in the last episode that the in-person bake-off in LA was unfortunately canceled because of the the fires and things, do you think that was an influence? Like if the Dune team or whoever had a chance to come up and show what they did rather than the 10-minute online clips that they had, that would have maybe benefited some other films? Maybe? Or do you think some of these trains were they were just going to name check and move on?
I just, again, same thing I said, the sound applies here. I just don't, I don't sometimes understand what people that voting in these categories are looking at and saying that
right
Oscar nominee. Like, sorry, nothing in Amelia Perez compares to Dune Part 2 or even something like Maria. Sorry, I know Maria isn't necessarily everyone's favorite Pablo Larraín Great Woman biopic. Angelina Jolie, as we'll get to, was and as was briefly mentioned earlier, was left out of the Best Actress field. But they did a pretty excellent job when it came to transforming one of the most famous women in America into a lesser known opera singer. Not lesser known in terms of famous opera singers, but lesser known than Angelina Jolie. And I felt like I was watching Maria Callas. So those sorts of things are the things that impress me. Maybe Nosferatu kind of gets the spot here, which it deserves, by the way, that a Dune Part 2 with these transformative looks of the Harkonnens and everything else could have gotten, but I don't know. I'm glad A Different Man is here. Nosferatu as well. And The Substance, much deserved. I'm so upset. I'm having a really bad day.
Well, we're here for you. Talk it out, buddy.
Get it.
Talk it out, buddy. Talk it out.
I don't get it. Somebody else talk.
Okay, Erica, take us to best costume.
I'm sorry, Will, that I'm laughing at you.
No,
it's
it's definitely performative dismay, but like, come on.
I know, but it just made me giggle. Okay, best costume design: Wicked, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Nosferatu, and Gladiator 2. We have Gladiator 2 showing up here.
Yes.
What's our reaction?
The lone nomination for Gladiator 2, of course, Janty Yates is an Academy favorite, so not surprised to see her here. The big shocker for me was perhaps Conclave. Well, actually, I will say there are multiple shockers. A Complete Unknown getting in here, I think, is a real show of strength for that film because the costumes are not the flashiest, and I think this branch prefers flashy costumes, like a Wicked or like a perhaps Dune 2 that didn't make it in. And then also Conclave. I did not have Conclave predicted because I felt like, no offense to the amazing costume designers, but we've seen sort of these robes and things before. It's not necessarily an inventive costume design. So that was surprising to me. Did you guys have costumes in your predictions, or were there other things that you thought might make it in here? Maria would have been a great place to honor that film in particular.
Yeah, I would have gone for some other films. I don't know. Furiosa is something I would have considered again here.
The substance would have been a very worthy.
Oh
yeah, that jacket. Yep. Yeah, I think The Apprentice again could have been included here. I think that the Brutalist could have been here. I don't know. I think Ariane Phillips designed the costumes for A Complete Unknown, and she's now a 4-time nominee, and she was nominated for Walk the Line. So I guess that's another one of those, like, oh, remember when she did that? Well, she did it again, and it's really solid work. And she transformed Monica Barbaro and Timothy Chalamet into Joan Baez and Bob Dylan, respectively, as well as many other actors into their famous musician counterparts. So I wasn't as surprised, but
do we think something like this is something where they are looking at the whole film instead of just looking at the costume design, where it's like, oh yeah, I loved Timothy Chalamet in A Complete Unknown, and he was so transformative in the performance, and then they just are like, oh yeah, costume design, yeah, he looked totally like him, like that kind of thing. Do we feel like it's that?
I mean, that's part of it, but to Will's point, I think when you have these like Academy favorites, maybe you're more likely to vote for people whose work you're familiar with. Like it's hard that's why it's hard for newcomers to break in, because
yeah. I think I was surprised to not see Dune here. Everything else is mid compared to Wicked, so obviously that's where I stand.
Part of me feels, I'm not even going to entertain that. Part of me feels like I don't know. I think that one of the big things for me is just that Dune Part 2 was kind of left in the dust when it came to awards contention in practically every category except for the few below the lines that it has been nominated for. And I think that there's two things that came into effect that caused that. One, it was released in March, and for whatever reason, we aren't allowed to nominate a film that was released before September.
Other than Everything Everywhere All at Once.
This is true. This is very true. And number two, they gave the first part its flowers, and that was in a weak year, and this is theoretically a stronger year, so they're going to move on, and that's just the end of it. So I don't know. I think it's cool that when not every single nominee, and Dune definitely does not fit this category, but not every single nominee is like the Victorian gowns per se. Like Nosferatu doesn't even fit that bill. There's a lot more invention going on there, especially with the Orlok character. So
a couple of overall trends to kind of tie into what you're saying with films from earlier in the year really did not do well. I mean, The Donut for Challengers, which I did not see coming. Sing Sing obviously underperformed. Dune Part 2, and then sequels in general did not do well. Gladiator 2, 1 nomination. Dune Part 2 again underperforming. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes maybe could have shown up a few other places. It did not. So that's interesting to me, and I'll be interested to see, because again, and we've mentioned this on other podcasts. If they know there's a Dune Part 3 coming, is that what they're waiting for? Are they waiting for Wicked Part 2, or is it no? We just didn't like these films.
If they're waiting for Wicked Part 2, how many nominations is it going to get? 23?
I hope
They're gonna give it
so.
live action short for one of the original songs. I'm just kidding. I'm being.
Would that be so bad? Would that be
yes,
so bad?
it would.
Oh, and then another trend too, guys. A lot of like black and white, right? Nosferatu did very well. There was the girl with the needle, spoiler alert, did well. So I'm curious about that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of musicals this year, obviously, more so than other years, kind of doing very well. And to Will's point about the films coming out in March, later releases did pretty well this year. A Complete Unknown coming out later really helped that film. Nosferatu coming out a bit later really helped that film. So, and sometimes it's the opposite, right? Sometimes films come out too late and they get blanked. So it'll be interesting to see if these are sort of trends or if this was an anomaly because of, so many other factors that took place this year. Which brings us to Best Production Design. Again, Wicked, The Brutalist getting in here, Conclave, Nosferatu, and Dune Part 2. No big surprises here for me. I feel like, all of these nominations, all of these films were films that, showed strength in this particular category. Did anything stand out for you two?
No. I think if there was anything I was really impressed by when it came to Wicked, it is certainly the production design. It's pretty gorgeous. It's really nice to look at. And that's kind of what you look for when it comes to production design. I'm glad the Brutalist still showed up, even though that movie was entirely made by AI. Did you guys hear about that whole thing?
No.
You were the supervisor of the AI, actually.
Yep, whole thing was made by ChatGPT.
You've taken a break to join us. No, honestly, I love the production design of all of these. I think they're sort of kind of unique in their own way. Like, again, Dune Part 2, I love everything that they did with the Colosseum that they built. And then Nosferatu, like just building, obviously, everything in Transylvania is so interesting. Conclave,
underrated Conclave.
They rebuilt the Sistine Chapel for that movie, so I'm glad that they got. And then The Brutalist, I mean, it's a movie about an architect. I think the production design is such a key part of the plot of that film. And then just Wicked had so much stuff. So this is like such a solid category. I really don't have complaints. Will,
for the record, Erica, The Brutalist was not entirely made by AI.
I know. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Very overblown controversy that we've moved.
I haven't heard about this, so
that's okay. Don't look it up.
Okay, I know. I've been trying to not look at anything for The Brutalist because I still haven't seen it, and I don't want anything to come in. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I agree. I think this is a really strong category. I'm going to be interested to see who goes away with it. Obviously, I'm pulling for Wicked. We all know that. But I do think this is a really strong category because I've seen all of these except for The Brutalist. And, I think it's all very deserving and makes sense to me from what I know. So,
Will you please do us the honor of reading your favorite category of the evening, Best Original Song?
Honored. Yeah. Best Original Song nominees. I'm just going to read the title and the movie. Congratulations to the writers. El Mal from Emilia Perez. Mi Camino from Emilia Perez. Never Too Late from Elton John, Never Too Late. Wonder where they got that idea. I will read this nominee. The Journey by Diane Warren. Congratulations on your 8,000th Academy Award nomination.
Her nomination total, Will, is old enough to drive. It's 16.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's got a permit. That's from the movie everyone's seen called The 688. And Like a Bird from Sing Sing. Anybody have any opinions here?
Well, do you have any opinions?
I do.
Yeah, you tell us your.
I do. The only good song in this category is Like a Bird from Sing Sing, and it's not going to win. So that's my opinion.
Nomination was a shock. I mean,
I'm thrilled.
I kept it in my 10 just because, as I've said over and over again, Sing Sing is my favorite movie of the year. But that just knocked my socks off. And then I had the song in from Kneecap. I finally took it out. And I did put in both Amelia Perez songs, even though I did not want to. And that is what it is. The Diane Warren of it all is what it is. I do feel sad for Kiss the Sky from Wild Robot not getting in. That was surprising to me.
Yeah, I was surprised there too.
What are we doing? I know they got rid of the performances, so maybe it was like, well, Maren Morris isn't going to sing, so why do it? But what are we doing?
Here's a question, Will, and I want you to consider this for all the categories, this one. Do you think that they actually are listening to the song? Because, nominating something like a Bird is a very inspired nomination, which makes me think, okay, they're paying attention. But then there's other categories we get to where I'm like, did you actually watch the thing, or did you just nominate them because you like this person? Right. And so I feel like,
are you talking about Elton John there?
Well, no. Actually,
I'm kidding.
I don't know, because even with Sing Sing, I feel like if you watch Sing Sing, then you would have nominated Clarence Macklin, perhaps, but maybe they didn't even watch the film and they just liked Coleman Domingo enough to give him that, consecutive Best Actor nomination. So I'm just I just feel like I'm not really sure what to make of it. I think the lack of inspired nominations, there aren't very many. Probably points to the fact that they just didn't get to as many films, which is why we have so many films with, these astronomically large tallies.
Right. And on that's a problem. If you're an Academy voter, you have unlimited access. Literally unlimited. You are given access to these films far earlier than a great majority of the non-film festival attending population. Critics, yes, they can see things early. They probably see things that are nominated here even earlier than some of the Academy voters. Like, I know that Tracy Letts and Carrie Coon, they have a tradition going where Carrie Coon tweets out their movie night and tags the Academy as a hashtag to be like, this is what we're watching tonight because we vote. And I think that's really cool because she's actually every single night saying, here's what we're watching, as part not only of the fact that we're both cinephiles, but that we have a duty here to consider the movies that are up for awards that we have a hand in handing out. I know this is, at the end of the day, a very silly awards show where we hand celebrities golden statues of a man holding up a plaque, and that's an Emmy. Sorry, a man holding a plaque in his hands like this, which, whatever. I understand that this is all being taken too seriously, but you have a job. And you know what it is? It's really cool. It's watching movies. So do that.
Yeah.
Take everything take stock in everything, consider everything, and then make an educated choice, whether it's based on your emotions or based on what you think is most deserving, whatever. Like, I have yet to watch the 688. Maybe I'll watch it, and Diane Warren's The Journey will cause me to, crumple into a ball of emotion like never seen before. I have a feeling that's not the case, though. Sorry to say. So I'm just frustrated because you ask a really good question, and I see, you say, like, are they watching, or are they just handing out votes to people that they like? I see a category here that maybe was split down the middle, because the only song here that feels like an inspired nominee at all is Like a Bird, and I didn't expect it to get in here, and I'm really glad that it did, because the rest of them are just like, okay, the two songs that have been being showered with awards from Amelia Perez for months, and then Elton John and Diane Warren. Come on.
And what's interesting, Will, is the list that you read off of the films that also got the 13 Oscar nominations is a lot of them are newer films. Like, we're heading towards this track where there's just not, I guess, ideally, when there's more content, you get to watch more things, but I feel like it's just becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and shrinking. And, there's this great sort of meme. I think it's from the New York Times, but I'm not sure, where they ask, like, Kristen Dunst, like, oh, do you have more films you need to see? And she says, no, I'm a member of the Academy. I watch everything.
Right.
And, imagine living in a world where people take voting seriously. I guess they don't in any aspect. Yeah.
A point, and then we can move on about this, what you just said about Emilia Perez, 13 nominations. And you had mentioned that it's also the most nominated international film in the history of the Academy. When the Academy started to bring in new members, there was this very exciting moment where everybody was like, oh, the Academy is beginning to evolve. It's really cool, the International Academy. This is not what we meant. Parasite was really cool. If this is happening now, I don't know what's going on. Who has access to the Academy screening portal? I just... Next category. What is it? I don't even know.
No, really quick though, I just want to say I think that was all beautifully said, because I think the beauty of having an awards body like the Academy, where it's people that are in the industry vote, it's not like it's like a people's choice, right? Where it's like the public is voting or something, right? You would want everyone to watch everything that they can and take it seriously, because if you were someone that was nominated, you would want them to do that for you, right? And I just don't, I agree, like I wish there was a way that, like, you could only nominate or vote if you've seen it, and they had a way to keep track of that. I mean, I don't know. Technology, right? 2025. So
here's the thing is, I've said this before, is like we're talking about with the shorts, that Oscar nomination is going to be enough to get a lot of people to watch these movies. So, for a movie like I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, that's fantastic. But
yeah, it's great.
Like, that's a very serious thing. And I wish people would take that more seriously, of like, when you are giving these films a nomination, that's an endorsement, and people are going to take that seriously. And what does that mean? And, maybe it is obviously a good thing that some of these films are being magnified, but then is it maybe not that, like, this group has so much power and they're not necessarily taking the responsibility that they should? Again, apologies, because like we're saying, that doesn't apply to everyone, but it just seems like,
of course not.
I don't know, something to think about, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Best Original Score. There's some tough names in here, so I'm just going to read the film. We have The Brutalist, Emilia Perez, Conclave, The Wild Robot, and Wicked.
You're not sounding very impartial. You have not even disguised it at all.
I'm trying.
It's fine.
It is interesting that The Wild Robot shows up here, I think. I think that was a pleasant surprise.
No, I would tend to disagree. I think a lot of people have really, really, really been riding hard for Chris Bowers and his score. I think it's actually one of the better ones of the year.
Yeah, that's the power of Chris Bowers coming through here. Deservedly so. The thing that I find, and I actually went 5 for 5 in this category, what I find interesting is that when you have two musicals, how do you differentiate between, like, the score? I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. Because, like, where does the I don't know. And then why do you disqualify, like, the Dune Part 2 score gets disqualified, but then the Wicked score, which is, I'm sure, partly based on the music. I'm confused.
It doesn't make sense. I do think, I mean, wait, so you didn't have challengers in your final list?
No, I took it out. Well,
wow.
Wait.
Egregious.
Did you? No, I can't remember if I took it out or not.
Because I was shocked that it didn't show up. I had it winning because I just feel like if it was going to show up anywhere, it was going to show up there and it was going to win. So I was completely wrong there. So, yeah.
I can't remember. I do have to give props to Cameron. Like I said, he was on the nominations predictions podcast with me and convinced me to put in Better Man for Best Visual Effects.
Nice.
and gave me a save there. So we have our 5 nominees: Dune Part 2, Wicked, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Alien Romulus, and Better Man.
I can't believe we just moved on from the Challenger snub like that.
Sorry, would you like to?
No.
Yeah.
No. I need to shut up. So let's talk about.
No, you don't.
Let's talk about all the monkeys in best visual. No, Better Man's a great call by Cameron because.
Have you both seen Better Man?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Rocks.
It's a shame.
It rocks.
It's a shame that people, and I understand that it's a singing monkey and it's weird, but it ends up it works and it's creative and it's cool.
If you like look into why Robbie Williams wanted that to be the case, like that he is a CGI monkey in the movie, all of your confusion would be removed.
Well,
it is because he felt like he was a monkey amongst people, like an animal that was misunderstood, and he was never going to be included in the same category as any other person in his midst. Not in like a he's so great way, but in a I don't fit in way. So that was his messaging with that.
Oh yeah,
you move on from that, and it's like, okay, Robbie Williams.
Yeah, I picked that up immediately from because at first I was like, what is that? And then I was like, oh, performing monkey. Like I get it, you know. But the fact that you both are singing its praises will drive me to see it, because it was one of those things where I was like, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to take it seriously, but I will watch it.
I haven't looked into how PETA feels, because this monkey does do a copious amount of drugs. So
they're gonna throw paint on a CGI monkey,
and it's well known. It's well known that they used live monkeys as part. No, Better Man's good. Fun times. The Rock, the Rock DJ set piece performance is worth the price of admission alone. So really good. And I think everything kind of makes sense here.
We'll read off best cinematography because I have a lot to say.
Nice.
And I have a lot to say.
You have a lot to say. Okay. In this category, we have Lowell Crawley for The Brutalist. We have Paul Guillaume, maybe, for Emilia Perez. I apologize. Yaron Blaschke. Of course, I perfect that. I just know him by this point for Nosferatu. Greg Fraser for Dune Part 2, and Edward Lockman for Maria. What do you have to say, Shadan?
Well, this is one of those categories that I struggled with for a long time. Shout out to our Chasing the Gold writer, Ronald. I know he's also a cinematography nerd, dork, enthusiast, and we went back and forth on this one a lot. I had Wicked in for like a day because of the ASC nom, and I took it out in favor of Craig Fraser, so that paid off for me there. The shocker here for me was Conclave not getting in, and then Ed Lockman, getting in for Maria, even though sort of for a long time people thought that he was going to win, and then he completely dropped off, and then now he's back despite the ASC snub, and then no Conclave is really interesting because you have a film that did really well. Many people are thinking it's potentially best picture, but missing cinematography in favor of The Brutalist. The Brutalist has been my front runner for a long time. In favor of Emilia Perez is really interesting. Because like I said, the Ed Lockman I get, he's a legend in the field. It's a shame that that's the lone nomination for Maria, but I'm happy that it's represented, beautifully here. But yeah, that floored me to see Emilia Perez. I guess I shouldn't be surprised given how much they like that movie, but I just didn't think it was going to happen. I don't know.
Were you more surprised by that or by Maria only showing up?
I figured kind of like what Will was saying, like, okay, if it's going to show up, it's going to show up a couple other places too. But I guess just I did not realize how strong Amelia Perez was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be more in like the 10 nomination range, kind of tied with The Brutalist. Like, it broke through quite a few places, like hair and makeup, that I just did not foresee.
Right.
So yeah, especially in cinematography, I felt like that was one of the bigger shockers in terms of the tech categories for sure for me.
I just need a second on Nickel Boys.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Take all the time you need. Take more than a second.
What are we doing? Look, Lowell Crawley's cinematography for The Brutalist is among my favorite of the year. That Statue of Liberty shot has been memed to death. Eric, I know you haven't seen it. I'm sure you've seen at least the trailer.
Yes.
But look, that movie is filled with some of the most striking images I've seen in a long time. Certainly this year. Nosferatu, Dune Part 2, even Maria. Ed Lockman is an elder statesman of Hollywood cinematography. He's famed. He's not Roger Deakins, but he's like B-side Roger Deakins. Listen, just Jomo Frey's cinematography, as well as the camera operation by Ramel Ross and many other members of that production, is not only some of the most inventive work I've ever seen on film, but it's without a doubt the best work by any camera crew. Anybody in the field of cinematography should have recognized it as such. Best of this year, I should have said. So it's ridiculous that it's not here. It's kind of an insult to the craft of cinematography if you don't look at Nickel Boys and go, oh my God, I have not seen something. You may have seen something attempt to look like this before, but you've never actually seen anything that looks like this before, that is as successful in pulling off point of view cinematography. You feel like you are inside the bodies of the characters and watching what is in front of them through their eyes. It's magnificent. It's devastating. It's the best thing I've seen all year, both the movie and the cinematography, and it's not nominated for an Oscar. Whatever, fine, it's good.
Well,
glad we went for Amelia Perez and Maria. Good.
I mean, when it got the ASC snub, that's kind of when I felt like the writing was on the wall, and I took it out of my predictions. But I just, to your point, well, what are we doing? And again, this is the cinematography branch. How do you not see like something that is reinventing your craft and sort of, because I think it's one of those things like the Sound and Blitz, honestly, where I feel like if you're in film school, it's going to be one of those films that your professor is going to go, you need to watch this. If you want to understand the craft of cinematography and what you can do with it, that's going to be a top tier film for that reason. And for it to not be here, for it to not, spoiler alert, be in director is really, really, really disappointing. And I'm sorry, I think I said this in part last week. I'm going to say it again. What is the point of expanding your Academy membership if you're not going to nominate if you're not getting these films in there? And the fact that two movies of color about people of color had to battle it out for those best picture slots for these things, it's really upsetting to me. And again, to Will's point, you said it perfectly. What are we doing? And what do we need to do that we're not doing that has led us here? I'm very confused by it. And I think maybe if you guys have opinions on this, please let me know. Is the punditry, because certain films, were advocated for very heavily, but I feel like I saw a lot of advocacy for films like All We Imagine As Light, which did not end up panning out. So I'm very confused by like. Yeah, we
could say the quiet part out loud about that. But then again, September 5 had a lot of punditry behind it, and it's not here. I think punditry is certainly a part of it. I mean, the punditry sometimes feels like it's driving the way this is all going. And maybe that's just because a lot of the top pundits have a finger on the pulse of where voters are leaning, or members, or what members are watching and liking. But Amelia Perez and a few other titles, I know we continue to say Amelia Perez over and over again, but that's because it got 13 nominations.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's not like we're just trying to, crap all over this movie,
Yeah.
even no matter what our feelings are on it. I'm not a fan. I don't think many of us are, but like, it got 13 nominations, and there's a reason for that. Maybe we aren't the people to figure that out, or we obviously can't because we don't have the ear of an Academy voter. But like, a lot of attention was paid to that movie and a few others, and they are all across the docket here.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a surprise.
And I mentioned this in the nominations episode, but I think it's so interesting that oh my God, where was I going with this, guys? I'm sorry. But
well, I'll chime in here really quick, because
Yeah.
I think the thing that, I haven't seen Nickel Boys yet, but have seen the trailer for it. The trailer has started playing at my local AMC that I go to, which is exciting. I will say, like, I think the saving grace is that because it's nominated for Best Picture, I think a lot of people will see it.
Yeah.
Still, and I think that's a good thing. But I agree. It's like, how do you look at something like that? And how does, like, again, we've talked about how the people that are nominating are the people that do the work. And is it one of those things where it's like, is it not making it because I know we've talked about this in years past, where it's like, oh, well, that's definitely going to get in. I'm going to vote for this and this and this, right? Like, is that what's happening? I don't know what is happening, but you guys were talking about like inspired choices for best song, original song, and things like that. That would have been a really inspired, like, but we shouldn't be saying that, right? Like, it should have shown up here and it didn't. Right. So why is that happening?
It should have been an obvious choice and
exactly.
a top content. It shouldn't have been, like something that we're hoping and praying for and crossing our fingers.
It should have been a no thought. Like, absolutely, it gets in because it's so astonishing. It's so different. It's so unique. It takes a, it takes a different whole different direction. I think about one of my professors in school that would say, like, show me something I've seen a million times in a different way. That's what makes good cinematography.
Right.
And it is a bummer that it doesn't show up somewhere like here. And again, not to take anything away from Amelia Perez, even if we didn't like it as a film, I think, certain things that it made the nomination for, I'm like, yes, that is really cool and that's really great, and we'll get to that. But it's showing up somewhere like here, it's like you can't help but feel like it took away the spot for something like Nickel Boys, right? And that's why it's upsetting and devastating. It's because it's like, well, this is just freaking showing up again because it's showing up everywhere, and it doesn't need to show up everywhere. And I think that's what we're getting at,
And what I wanted to bring up, in my conversation with Cameron is we were talking about the idea of like the online conversation and then what's sort of happening in the real world. And when I say that, I don't want to discount, like, all of the criticisms of Amelia Perez, in my opinion, are very valid. But I think maybe we need to like come around to the idea that like people in the real world don't pay attention, even though they should. Like, ideally, you should be kind of open to other perspectives and what are people saying and thinking. But like, the more I get into this, the more I'm like, that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Right. Like, they vote for what they like, and that's it. And they just like Amelia Perez. And as I saw somebody else say this, I think Amelia Perez, more than any other film this year, benefited from having their actresses everywhere. Mm-hmm. Every time there was an FYC event, Carla was there. Or all three of them were there. There was always some combination of them out there. And I think that legwork, you want to talk about Diane Warren, she shows up everywhere. She shakes the hand, kisses the babies, and it pays off for her. And I think Amelia Perez really benefited from that this year. But yeah, I think we need to really think about, are these discourses really impacting people? Are these controversies, having an impact? I would argue no. Now, when we get to winner predictions, maybe we may feel differently, but I think there's a sort of this split or whatever you want to call it in the discourse, and that's something that we need to keep in mind. For unfortunately, or however you may feel about it, set aside. Okay, sorry about our
Deep
sorry.
breath.
Yes. Best editing. Okay, our best editing: Conclave, The Brutalist, Anora, Wicked, and Emilia Perez. I took out The Brutalist here because it did not get a lot of precursors for best editing. I think my thinking was, well, people are going to see a 3.5-hour movie and think that it's not well edited. So I'm actually surprised that the editing branch at least understands that just because a movie is long does not mean that it is not edited well. So pleased to see that here. Yeah. Any other thoughts about best editing?
You mentioning that point just made me think of I think it was when The Irishman was nominated, there was a lot of memes going around of Rodney Dangerfield like standing on stage being like, The Irishman's a 4-hour movie nominated for best editing. I don't think they edited enough of it. It's like, it made me think of that, something along those lines, similar to The Brutalist.
That's great.
Great humor that my dad would love. I think this is another category that there's like 3 nominees that I'm totally all in on, and then there's 2 that I'm not so much, but that's okay. They can't all be winners. No nickel boys, no challengers. I've crossed that bridge already. I think if I keep beating the same drum, people are gonna be like, dude, put down the gong. But look, I'm an emotional guy. Conclave is very well edited. It is. It really is. The Brutalist is personally would be my pick to win here, but again, we're not doing that just yet. I think that kind of stands out above the rest of the field here, but alas.
And this is our first opportunity to bring up Anora. I actually think this was a great nomination for Anora. I think it is very well edited, and an inspired choice.
My God,
it is the first opportunity. I mean,
I know,
so crazy. Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like, it's funny because I didn't think about it that way, but it is the first place where it actually shows up, and that seems wild. But I love the way it was edited, so it makes sense that it shows up here. But when you said it like that, that just like stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah.
There were very many. Nora. Solid, despite controversies of its own. And there weren't many below the line places that it could have shown up. I think it kind of got everything that it needed to get. But that is a movie, talking about films that have lost steam. I think that movie, things are not looking great, which is unfortunate because I do think it's solid.
Like you said, I do think it shows up everywhere it needed to and where it was going to. But it does seem like, man, when it first came out, it was like, this is it, It's just interesting how it can ebb and flow over time. So,
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, best documentary. I always get super excited for this category because I love a documentary and I look forward to what is going to be nominated so that I can seek them out. I haven't seen any of these yet. So if either of you has seen any of these, I would love to hear your thoughts. We have No Other Land, Black Box Diaries. I don't know if I'm going to be able
soundtrack to a coup d'etat.
Yes, thank you. Sugarcane and Porcelain War.
It's a really good category.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really good group. I think it's the best group we've read off so far. No
Have
Other
you seen
Land.
All of these?
I have. Yeah, they're all very good. No Other Land is my personal favorite documentary of the year. but I also have great amount of affection for Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat and Sugarcane. I also like Black Box Diaries and Porcelain War both. So I think this is easily the best category, just top to bottom so far that we've read off. I think it's a really, really good group of, different sorts of stories, all with kind of the same, a similar civil rights ish core to all of them. And I think that's what a lot of recent years have been when it comes to best documentary feature. And I think there's obvious reason for that, and it's important. And I'm frankly thrilled by these 5.
Will, did you have Daughters kind of on your radar? Because that was my winner, my predicted winner.
Wow,
so
really?
That not making it was quite a bit of a shock to me.
Yeah, I personally would have included Daughters in this category if it were up to me. I had predicted that it would be in this category as the 5th nominee, over Porcelain War, if I should add. So that was a bit of a surprise. That would have been another Netflix title. It was a Sundance premiere last year. I think it's really, really, really very good. Bring a box of tissues to your couch when you watch it on Netflix. But yeah, I slightly surprised, but at the same time, I think Porcelain War, it's representing Ukraine in this category. Not that it's international feature, but topical subject matter. I think it probably hit home for a lot of voters, or at least hit them in the stomach, perhaps watching it. So yeah.
I had
either way,
Porcelain War, like from the beginning, I had my eye on it, and then I didn't take. I took it out of my predictions. So I should have stuck with my gut on that one. But another thing to mention too is No Other Land does not have a U.S. distributor. So the amount of passion that must have been clearly, again, this documentary branch does pay a lot of attention. To have that passion to carry it through is really impressive. And another sort of continued trend that we see again come through with Best Documentary Feature, they really don't like their celebrity docs. I mean, a lot of people had Will and Harper thinking that could break through. So that bias continues with this branch, which I thought was interesting. So
I'm okay with that, though. Yes, Will and Harper is a significant exception. I think that's not quite, a Martha or a I don't know. Brooke Shields' Pretty Baby I don't believe was nominated. It might have been. I also think that was actually like a TV show for some reason. Yeah, it wasn't nominated. But regardless, these celebrity vanity projects that you talk about, I can't think of any other than Martha because I kind of block them out every year. But Will and Harper's definitely an exception. But I just like the direction. Hopefully, this category is heading in. It's putting a spotlight on films that need to be seen urgently. No Other Land, Black Box Diaries, Sugarcane, Porcelain War, maybe a little bit more than Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, but Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat is fascinating documentary.
Super inventive.
Highly recommend.
Interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Will you cover Best International Film for us at Chasing the Gold? So I'll let you take over your baby.
My baby. Yeah, my number one baby, Amelia Perez. I'm still here. I'm still here from Brazil. Amelia Perez, I should say, is from France. Flo from Latvia. The Seed of the Sacred Fig from Germany. And The Girl with the Needle from Denmark. I promise I'm not saying this. I should have put Shadan, I texted you about the alternate, and I should have actually given you an alternate, and it would have been The Girl with the Needle. I had Vermiglio, Maura Del Pero's film, which would have been representing Italy, as my 5th nominee here. Girl with the Needle would have been my alternate. I promise I'm not just saying that. So I was 4 for 5 here, and I'm really mad about it because I was 5 for 5 in my other category.
Girl with the Needle was my number 6 as well. So again,
pretty good group here.
black and white. Well, that's what I was going to ask you is in terms of how the category has evolved, what do you think of like kind of where we were, then we got our short list? Like what has been surprising to you?
See, it's hard to view things as surprises right now, just because I think, especially with this category, I've been following it all year, and thinking about it a lot and trying to see as much as I possibly could. And when it comes down to the short lists, I think that I understand why they do it. You want to limit one submission from each country. I get it. I think that also, though, kind of it boots out a number of films that could have otherwise or should have otherwise been nominated or at least considered.
Well, no, Will, I think we need to say the quiet part out loud here, which is that, for something like All We Imagine Is Light, you can't, when countries are picking their own submissions,
right. This is a good point.
Politics comes into play. And so a lot of times the filmmakers are quite frankly punished for making films that are controversial, air quotes controversial, or challenge the government in some way. Of course, Germany is The Seat of the Sacred Fig is an Iranian film representing Germany because the filmmaker was imprisoned and then had to be anyway.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be like a committee or something, or not. I don't know. But I think you're punishing filmmakers, and it's kind of a form of censorship. Maybe that's going too far, but it's really a shame. And then again, you have very talented filmmakers that are continuously punished, and then you have very incredible films because of the one movie per country rule. That get punished. So I think that there needs to be some rethinking there, if I may be bold enough to say. Now, I understand the one film per country rule because if not, it may be very European dominated.
Right.
So
it would be
that. Yeah. So that gives room for more countries to come into play. But yeah.
I also think that if we're going to talk about this year, and I know we just said that the short list is perhaps a little silly, but I will just mention this. It is an interesting collection of countries that ultimately got shortlisted this year. I'll read them really fast. Brazil, Canada, Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Germany, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Norway, Palestine, Senegal, Thailand, and the United Kingdom. So you're not necessarily, that's again, you're getting a broad swath of films to choose from. And then the films that are ultimately nominated are from Brazil, Denmark, France, Germany, and Latvia. So it's just it's a weird situation, I guess. I don't really know how necessarily you would fix it. Ultimately, though, with the films that were nominated, I'll just point out specifically that I'm really, really thrilled that I'm Still Here showed up here. I'm especially thrilled that Flow showed up here. Seat of the Sacred Fig, I predicted would be here. I like that film quite a bit. Girl with the Needle, same deal. And as we said, I think at the top, Emilia Perez is expected to run away with this category. I would love to be just absolutely blown away and see the Brazilian contingent in the Academy show up and shower I'm Still Here with the praise that it deserves. That movie,
that would be incredible.
Knocked my socks off when I saw it at the New York Film Festival this year. It's really, if you haven't had a chance to see it and you're able, do so. It is really excellent, and not just because of its lead performance, which is the best I've seen this year, or among the best I've seen this year, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Spoiler alert, we should say the first time in history that we have 2 international films in Best Picture. Again, sort of proving the power of these international members that have come into the Academy. that are the sort of the changing of the guard, if we will. But we also
before we move on really quick,
no,
can we, because we're about to talk about, I think you're about to move on to animated film, which this film is also nominated there. Did you guys see the reaction from the filmmaker of Flo watching the nominations this morning? Just
with his
eating
dog.
an apple and snuggling with his dog. It brought me so much joy. If you have not seen it, please look it up in these uncertain times. It is content that you need your eyeballs to see. It's just so, it was perfect. I just want to throw that in there. Sorry, go ahead, Shadan.
No, you're fine. Well, I was gonna say, actually, if you need, I mean, so many great nominations, reactions this morning. I don't want to get spoilers for too many categories, but yeah, you're completely right, Erica. If you need a dose of joy, like just go see these people react to their Oscar nominations. It's so cool. So for Best Animated Film, Flo getting the double nomination here for international and animated. A lot of people at some point in time thought Dahomey may be the film to do that, but it was Flo instead. Then we have The Wild Robot, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. Any thoughts here? This 5 seemed to be the consensus 5. I think.
No surprise here whatsoever.
This makes sense. Yeah.
This category tends to bore me a little bit, not because I don't love animation. I do, but it's kind of feels like it's always decided long before the nomination actually is announced. It's like, okay, here's the 5. One of them made $1 billion. Another one made a lot of money as well. There's Wallace and Gromit. And then there's two really inventive, artistic, maybe more critically driven works, that being Flo and Memoir of a Snail. Kind of feels like it's always that way. So I'm not surprised by any of this.
Yeah.
And
there's definitely a formula here.
Dahomey was a documentary, so a lot of people thought it was going to get international and doc, not international and animated. But we were looking to see which international film may be the double nom, and it was Flo, and the Golden Globe winner as well, I should mention. Okay, guys, we've come to our top 8 categories. Bear with us.
Yay!
And let's get into. Will, do you do best adapt? You do original or
I do adapted.
Okay, take us away.
All right. Nominees here are Peter Strawn for Conclave, Jacques Audiard, Thomas Bidegain, and Nicolas Lavecchi for Emilia Perez, Jay Cox and James Mangold for Complete Unknown, Ramel Ross and Jocelyn Barnes for Nickel Boys, and Clint Bentley, Greg Cuidar, Clarence Macklin, and John Divine G. Whitfield for Sing Sing. I nailed it. 5 for 5. No,
you nailed all those. You nailed all those names too, if I must say. I'm very impressed.
Thanks. I actually don't know if I screwed any of those up, so I apologize.
You did. You did great.
But I felt like I had a good feeling about this one. I was pretty certain in my piece. I said Conclave is waltzing away with this thing. I feel like Conclave is starting to slip just overall. And there's another movie that's here. It also shows up in 12 other categories. So I don't know. 12. But not 11. But 12. Anyway, look, I think that there are some really cool nominations here. They are probably the 2 films that are going to finish 4th and 5th in terms of voting for this category, being Nickel Boys and Sing Sing. But I'm really, really glad that both of them showed up here. I think it's important for those films like those, and there aren't many, because they're as beautiful and inventive as you can get, to show up here. So.
And we've been talking over and over again about branches that don't pay attention. And I think the writers for both, in original and adapted, do a good job of making sure that these creative, smaller films come through here. And, as much as we're disappointed, no nomination for Ramel Ross in directing, he does get an Oscar nomination. And so please, the film gods, at least maybe that may open the doors for funding for a future project, more payment for him to make other things. Same thing, my beloved Clarence Macklin, did not get into supporting actor. And I was crushed by that, but he does get an Oscar nomination here. Same thing for Greg Quidar for Sing Sing. So, these men spent almost a decade of their lives making this movie. So, yeah, it could have done better. As a disappointing morning. I'm just crushed, all of the things. But the fact that they at least come away with something, I think, is a silver lining.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think that insofar as a complete unknown goes, we haven't said too much about it so far today, but they go in a direction with the Dylan story that is different than what I think many others would have done, which is basically they focus on how he was kind of a jerk to most of the people in his life, and it's not a glowing portrait whatsoever. I think that the one consistent complaint I've heard about this this film and this adaptation is that this is a part of Bob Dylan's life and career that is well known to those who know Bob Dylan and his story, or know of Bob Dylan, I should say. But what else are you going to make a movie out of? And they made a good one. Not my favorite, but I like it. And insofar as that adaptation goes, I'm not going to complain about this one. I'm not going to complain about 4 of these nominations. Anyway.
Okay,
I'm a hater, man. I'm a hater.
You have to lean in, just like how I'm a lover of Wicked. You have to lean in. Lean in. Go ahead, Shadan.
I was gonna say, do you want to take us to original?
Sure.
Yep.
For best original screenplay, we have Sean Baker for Nora, Brady Corbet, and Mona Fastvold for The Brutalist.
Nailed
it. Corley Farjo. Oh, see, now I messed up that one.
Farjat.
Thank you, for The Substance. Jesse Eisenberg for Real Pain, and Moritz Binder and Alex David and Tim Fellbaum for September 5.
So I'm okay. This is where I have to kick myself a little bit because I do Oscar predictions for 2 separate outlets, and on my other outlet, I put in September 5. Why? I didn't mean to I wasn't trying to game the system. I literally just forgot to switch my prediction, and then I went this morning and I was so frustrated. So I guess I can claim 50% credit for getting this category 5 for 5. I guess. But I just knew because I knew okay, I did not think that September 5 was going to show up in picture. A lot of people had it in editing. I didn't see that happening. And I thought, okay, that PGA nomination has to mean something. And so I was it's going to take the challenger slot and it's going to show up here. So I guess I'm happy to see that film represented. It's not my favorite of the year. And I wanted to say, I guess, A Real Pain, a disappointing morning for that film, but Jesse Eisenberg getting an Oscar nomination here is interesting. What else? Does something else stand out for you guys about original here?
I know I said at the top that I am more interested in the things that we didn't necessarily expect getting in as a part as opposed to what is missing. Here it's definitely what is missing. I don't know necessarily what I would take out, which is the most annoying thing somebody can say before they list off a bunch of movies that they would rather be here. But something like All We Imagine Is Light, just give it 1 nomination. It would have been here and it doesn't show up. Again, to beat this drum, challengers, zilch, belongs here. Hard Truths gets blanked.
Oh my god, one of the most painful for me. It's and look, at this point I had seen it coming, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Right.
And it's one of those things where I just think if people had seen it, we would be having a different conversation, and it just didn't get in front of enough eyeballs. But yeah, that's probably one of, if we want to talk about disappointing snubs,
Yeah.
Hard Truth's not getting, because I think it's one of those movies that when people get around to it, they're going to be like, oh, why wasn't this nominated for everything that it should have been nominated for?
Yeah, I've seen it twice now, and the first time I saw it, I have to admit, I was like, she is awful. And the emotions of watching someone just so angry at the world, even if you can understand the reason for it, and kind of empathize with the person, it can get overwhelming. Second time, knowing what I was watching, knowing that this was a towering performance from Marianne Jean-Baptiste, I was focused on practically everything else, and it's really, really, really an excellent, just well-made movie. Maybe it's too one note for some people, voters I'm kind of referring to here. I don't know. There's a bit more rise and fall when it comes to these nominees. Emphasis on fall. But I think that, yeah, it's a shame to not see something like Hard Truths here. It's really, really compelling, emotional writing about humanity, and it's not here. But then, you see something like Honora, The Brutalist, The Substance, A Real Pain. I mean, all of them, honestly, because I think September 5 is pretty good. I liked it. Yeah, I don't know. Fine category. I'm bummed that some things missed, but I don't know what I would take out.
Right. This seems like one of those categories where it's like, we just need more. Can we bump it up to 7 or 8?
Right. Yeah.
Well, if only.
Okay, who wants to take Best Supporting Actress? This is the category that drove me crazy.
You take it. You take it.
Yeah, you take it. That's why I think you should take it. Exactly.
Okay, so our 5 nominees are Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez, Ariana Grande for Wicked. My favorite nomination reaction of today, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown, and Felicity Jones for The Brutalist. You know what? Apologies to my mother for ranting so much that I drove her crazy. Apologies to Felicity Jones. I took her out at the last minute because I just refused to let go of the Margaret Qualley of it all. I was just convinced because I had Farjat in director, I had it in screenplay, I had Demi, I had the makeup and hairstyling, and I just said this film is too strong, and if you watch it, you're gonna see what she's doing, and you're gonna vote for her. And they didn't, and I was wrong. And then
I was surprised. I was with you there. I was surprised. Yeah. I was shocked that she didn't show up. Go ahead.
And in terms of the other slot, I just thought Jamie Lee Curtis. I thought that they would default. She had shown up, everywhere, and I just thought they would default to her. And I think Monica Barbaro is a very inspired nomination. Actually,
awesome.
I disagree with you, Will. I don't like A Complete Unknown. Like I fully just am on the camp of I don't like this movie. Maybe I may rewatch it before the Oscars and feel differently. But I think she is the best part. I think it's one of those performances where I went and I forgot she was in the Top Gun sequel, but I watched it and I went, who is that? I thought she was so compelling, so interesting, and apologies to Jamie Lee Curtis too. I guess I'm going to offend everybody, but I'm glad that we got, because I do think this is a very inspired nomination, and I'm glad that she shows up here. I think that's super cool.
She's so good. So good. Was she not a singer before this? Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think she took lessons.
I don't know. Yeah, she's incredible.
Screw those people, by the way. Actually, you know what, Monica Barbaro, down with you and your nomination. Just you just go take classes and you end up sounding like Joan Baez. What is this?
She's so good. No, she's so good.
Ridiculously talented, and I had the reaction when I was watching Top Gun Maverick of like, who is that? And then to see her do what she does in A Complete Unknown, I agree. I think Chalamet's great, but she's the best part of that movie.
And she's stunning.
and I'm thrilled that she's here. I'm also thrilled to see that Felicity Jones makes it in for the Brutalist, because as much as that just kind of feels like, you know, a given, because it was expected to pick up so many nominations, and she's the actress in the movie essentially. Like there was a second there where people were kind of like, oh, is anybody going to really recognize this performance?
Yeah.
And I think it's actually quite good. There was then there was a second where people were like, are voters going to make it far enough into the Brutalist to vote for Felicity Jones because she's in the second half? And to that I say, once again, do your job.
Well, Will, to be honest with you, that was my rationale for taking her out.
I think it makes sense.
She shows, there's a
sucks.
voiceover and she shows up very briefly in the first part, but I was just convinced because I thought her scene, her moments, her transformations, all these things are in the back half, and I just kept seeing all these things about Academy voters saying they haven't seen it. So I was just convinced that she just was not going to be, not going to make it through.
I'll say this, and Erica, apologies for being again the worst kind of person. But
not true. Not true.
Shadan, no, you'll understand why I'm saying this. Shadan knows, and people who have seen the film know. I am very curious to see what clip they decide to use for Felicity Jones, because her 2 clips are not safe for ABC primetime audiences.
That is a great point, Will. Actually,
I'm intrigued.
I'm going to be looking for that too. Yeah, that's a great point.
So
we'll
see.
Does that mean we're definitely going back to clips? We definitely think that's happening.
I say that without even being certain of that. I don't. They better. It's so lame just seeing a still of an actor's face and a dramatic voiceover from Jane Fonda or somebody. Anyway,
all right, we're on to supporting actor.
We are.
Okay, go ahead. Well.
Oh, thank you. Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Edward Norton for Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, Yura Borisov for Honora, Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice, and I'm not even going to pause before I throw it to Shadan. What's missing here?
I mean, I said the Clarence. I mean, guys, I knew I was not surprised by the Clarence Macklin snub, but I'm just so sad because again, I'm sorry I said this last week, I'm going to say it again. I warned y'all that I would not shut up about Sing Sing, so here we go. If you watch the movie is about the transformative power of art. His character is the one that exhibits the transformative power of art. So how do you watch the film and not nominate it? Which is why I brought up of like, did they even watch it at all? I don't think they did. Will, you left us for a second there. Do you think that voters even watch Sing Sing, or do you think they just voted for Coleman Domingo because they like Coleman Domingo?
Yeah, sorry. All the Emilia Perez hatred gave me a dry mouth. How
dare you hydrate yourself? No, we need you to come and suffer with us.
Look, I hope they watched it. But I don't know. This is a very white category, and also look, Clarence Macklin belongs here. Then again, there are the 3, I guess, more highbrow performances in Kieran Culkin from A Real Pain, Guy Pearce in The Brutalist, and Yura Borisov in Nora, and then there are 2 super famous guys that people love. I guess Kieran Culkin you could throw in with Jeremy Strong because they were co-stars on Succession, and then Edward Norton showing up again for what is it now? Is it the second or third time he's been nominated?
It's his 4th nomination.
4th nomination. Yeah,
4th nomination.
So look, Clarence Macklin should have been here, but Edward Norton is Edward Norton, I guess. And Jeremy Strong is the guy that they liked from Succession, which is also not coincidentally why Kieran Culkin's going to win. So,
Were we surprised to not see Denzel here, though? Anyone?
Yeah,
No.
that's another. I wasn't too surprised about that. Shadan, what were you gonna say?
I think I actually go, not to be like I went 5 for 5, but I went 5 for 5 in Best Supporting Actor because I think at this point it had come together pretty well. And we can get to The Apprentice for a second when we get to Best Actor, but I think what's interesting is Yura Borisov, because when I saw Nora, I thought, what a cool performance. Wouldn't it be cool if they nominated it? And the fact that he actually has, hit his precursors and hit here was actually, a bit of a surprise, a bit of a pleasant surprise from this season. We've been talking about our disappointments for so long. But this was a pleasant surprise that they actually, watched the film and were able to recognize, because it is a more subtle performance. There are showier supporting roles in the film. So a pleasant surprise from this morning for sure.
So what made them watch Honora and not Sing Sing? What do we think?
I think it's because Honora maybe was more talked about and they did a better job of getting it out there. There was more buzz around Honora.
I was being super sarcastic.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
was going to say boobies.
That's where I was going.
Boobies?
No, I'm kidding. But that is kind of where I was going. Yeah,
No,
I don't know. It's a shame that Clarence Thank you, Erica.
You're welcome.
It's a shame that Clarence Macklin didn't show up here. It just is. It's that simple. And Shadan, I'm going to try not to read too far into you saying not to be 5 for 5, which is exactly what I did 5 minutes ago and adapted screenplay.
No, brag away, my friend. Well, how did you do with Best Actress? Or did you were you brave? Or did you predict?
No,
I
had this one. I had it right. I keep a running note in my phone throughout the year. And
all right, hit us with our 5 leading ladies.
I know. I'm like, yeah, I got them all. And people are like, okay, who are they? Demi Moore, The Substance. Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. Cynthia Erivo, Wicked. Carla Sofia Gascon, Amelia Perez. And Mikey Madison, Honora. So, Shadan, if we're looking at your ranking here based on I'm assuming this. Yeah, it is ranked. It says ranked. I think it's fast. I don't necessarily think you're wrong, but I just think it's fascinating, and I can't necessarily wrap my head around what the hell has happened with Honora to the point where Mikey Madison. It was like Mikey Madison, or is it going to be Angelina Jolie?
Right.
And now it's like, nope. Demi Moore is winning an Oscar, and Mikey Madison isn't even is just part of the conversation.
Barely,
yeah. And I do want to say, I have Cynthia 3rd and Carla 4th. I think I just based on the strength of Amelia Perez, that should probably be flipped. But I do think, Honora has just lost a lot of steam. I'm gonna maybe controversially predict that there's a world where it doesn't win anything come Oscar Sunday. And I just think, Demi Moore is so strong. Now I think Fernanda Torres is majorly gaining steam. The film obviously getting into picture. If you have enough passion for your performance that you carry your film along with you to a very surprising Best Picture nomination. I'm not brave enough to flip those 2 ladies yet, but that's got to mean something in terms of a show of strength. So yeah, I just think Honora has fallen apart. Again, it's hard to know, of the controversies that we've talked about, if anything maybe played a role here. I will say that I think the Golden Globes this year were a major factor. I think having Fernanda Torres get up there, spoiler alert for our next category, having Sebastian Stan up there. Now it was for a different movie, but I think having him up there had a big difference. I think Amelia Perez having a having a good night. I think that it was a huge player in how these nominations rolled out for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted
and played into Nora losing steam too, because it didn't win anywhere in the Globes. Yeah.
I think, great point, Erica. I think if Sean Baker had an opportunity to get up there, maybe that would have made a difference. But yeah.
Yeah. You kind of made the point that I'm thinking about here, Shadan, but when it comes to Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here, I know we're not predicting winners, but what I will say, I also saw this on Twitter, so I'm kind of stealing it, but Fernando Torres getting in here and I'm Still Here getting in Best Picture especially means that a lot more people in the Academy who maybe haven't already are gonna watch I'm Still Here, and they may not have to or feel as though they have to rewatch the other ones, which they probably have already seen, and that might cause a bit of a switcheroo when it comes to who they put atop their category. Maybe whether
That's
it's
a really
recency
good
bias or they're just like they are as blown away as most people who have watched it have been
And,
by Fernando Torres' performance.
We keep talking about the international contingent, and
Correct.
no offense to Demi Moore, who I love, and she clearly has a narrative, but she's not as big of an international presence, and I wonder if that's going to mean something at the end of the day. We shall see. I wanted to read off a couple of stats about Best Actress that I find particularly interesting. With Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here getting into picture, this is the first time in 47 years where all 5 nominees are also in Best Picture nominees.
Wow.
Which, how sad that our Best Picture nominees tend to be so male-dominated that our lead actress contenders have to come from other places. I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, the last time this happened was in the first Best Actress lineup in 47 years where all 5 nominees are Best Picture nominated. The last time this happened was in 1978 at the 50th Academy Awards. Cynthia Erivo is now the second Black actress, the 5th overall to be nominated for multiple Oscars. The only other actress to have multiple Best Actress nominations is Viola Davis, which I thought was interesting. Carla Sofia Gascon becomes the first out trans performer, actor, or actress to be nominated. So it's a huge breakthrough there. We were talking about lack of diversity in other categories, but this is a big moment, regardless of how you feel about the film, a big moment for representation. And then a sweet factoid that I found that I wanted to mention, which is that we have 2 more mother-daughter Oscar-nominated pairs that we can add. Isabella Rossellini getting the supporting actress nomination for Conclave. She now, obviously, her mother, the great Ingrid Bergman. And then Fernando Torres joins her mom, Fernanda Montenegro, who was nominated for Central Station. So cool to see some Nepo babies, deserved amazing Nepo babies, but they get to join the Oscar-nominated class with their parents, which I thought was such a cool thing. But
I love that.
Yeah. Any other sort of standout moments from Best Actress?
I got nothing.
Yeah, I think this was pretty solid. I think this is what we thought it was.
This is what I anticipated.
Yeah, let's go to Best Actor, where let's get into it. So we have Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, which we should mention he has now starred in 7 Best Picture nominees, guys. At the age of 29, getting his second Best Actor nomination. Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice, and Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. And speaking of crazy rankings, Will, at one point, Coleman Domingo for Many, Many Once was my winner. So to have to bring them all the way down to number 5 just hurts. But my big question, we need to talk about The Apprentice. I talked about it briefly, missing hair and makeup. So it gets Sebastian Stan in, and it gets Jeremy Strong in. I think Jeremy Strong got in based on, to your point, Will, the strength of love for Succession. I made this point that I think he's an actor that they've been kind of waiting for the moment to give him an Oscar nomination, and they saw their opportunity and they took it. And with Sebastian Stan, kind of like Diane Warren, he was out there this season. He really campaigned and championed both of his films incredibly well. He did win the Globe, as I mentioned, for a different film, but very smartly mentioned The Apprentice as well. But like, do you think that this is a political statement that they've made with these nominations? Do you think that they've even seen this film, or do you think it's just we like Sebastian Stan and we like Jeremy Strong? What is going on with this is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, to the first point about Sebastian Stan being out there, I think it's pretty amazing how, just to use the words again, out there he consistently is for his projects, especially the quote unquote smaller ones. Look, A Different Man was an A24 release, but it wasn't one of their big releases of the year. It being awarded the Gotham Prize for Best Film was a surprise to a lot of people. And just a quick anecdote, I saw that early last year at the New Directors, New Films Festival, which is a smaller festival that Film at Lincoln Center puts on in New York. And so I was able to see the film there, and Aaron Schimberg, the writer and director of the film, was there, but Sebastian Stan was also there at this is not the New York Film Festival. It's not TIFF. It's not any of these. It wasn't Sundance where the film premiered. He was at this smaller but still significant festival, just being like, I'm so thankful that you have come out to see this movie. Again, that was about A Different Man, but he has also been very, very, grateful and supportive of the project that he stars in, the other project he stars in, The Apprentice, when it has kind of been written off as like, okay, well, why would anybody want to talk to the guy or about the Donald Trump movie? It's a very good performance. That's my opinion. I think it's a very good performance in a movie that was bound to be subject of controversy. I don't think it's a political statement. I think it's the acknowledgement of an actor's, maybe his body of work for the year, more than it is specifically for The Apprentice. But at the end of the day, The Apprentice is probably a more widely known, at least of its existence, movie than A Different Man, just based simply on the fact that the President of the United States is its subject in the time, obviously, before he became the political figure that he is now. But still, it's a good performance in a fine movie.
So many good points, Will, there that I want to touch on briefly if I can. One is I do think it's a genuinely good performance. I think a lot of actors would have maybe gone into caricature, and I don't think Stan does that. I think there's a lot of subtlety. He makes a lot of small choices where he could have gone a lot bigger. And I could debate you on Strong, because I don't think that's actually I'm not as big of a fan as that performance. Maybe I need to watch it again, but I do think he goes very bombastic and big, and like there's not as much nuance to what he does. But I think Stan is excellent. And the point about being out there, who wasn't out there much this season was Daniel Craig. And I think I was so convinced about the vote splitting thing, and I stuck with that to the end. But I think Stan being out there was enough to make a difference in the end. And we should mention Sebastian Stan makes history as the first actor to be Oscar nominated for playing a sitting president. So while they're in office. So cool. But
awesome.
Can I read off, guys, quickly? Because again, you guys know I'm a bit of a stats nerd. So we had, now that we've finished all 4 of our acting categories, 13 first-time nominees, 65%. That's
cool.
That's awesome. So we have Sebastian Stan, Carlos Sofia Gascon, Mikey Madison, Demi Moore, Fernando Torres, Yuri Borisov, Kieran Culkin, Guy Pearce, Jeremy Strong, Monica Barbaro, Ariana Grande, Isabella Rossellini, and Zoe Saldana all getting their first nominations. And what's interesting is even of our returning people. So we have Adrian Brody, Timothy Chalamet, Colman Domingo, Cynthia Erivo, Felicity Jones getting their second nomination. So it's not, a Meryl Streep or a Nicole Kidman or these people that they come back to over and over again. Even these names are pretty fresh names. Then you have Ralph Fiennes with his third, and Edward Norton, as we mentioned, sort of the veteran of the group with his fourth. But for all the things that we again complained about this evening, I think it's really, really cool that we got a lot of fresh blood this year.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I agree.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting stuff.
All right, y'all.
Timothy Chalamet, freaking 7 Best Picture nominations, or 7 Best Picture movies he's been in. All right,
which is wild because if he wins this year, he's gonna break Adrian Brody's record as the youngest Best Actor winner, which is kind of cool. And then we should mention Colman Domingo, the first actor since Denzel Washington to get back-to-back Oscar nominations.
That's cool.
He has the Michael Jackson biopic coming out next year that could potentially bring him back for a third. So very, very cool. Shall we move on to our final 2 categories, guys? If you've been with us this long, thank you. And thank you to you two for sticking with me. I know you guys are an hour ahead of me. It's getting late. We're almost there, guys. Okay, so for Best Director, we have Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, Sean Baker for Anora, and Coralie Farge for The Brutalist. Probably some playing around with my rankings that needs to happen there.
For the substance.
For the substance, yes. Sorry, did I say that?
That's okay.
You got it.
Coralie Farge is The Brutalist. And Brady Corbet is The Substance.
Listen,
I would
actually
watch.
I am seated for these movies that do not exist and will never exist 100%.
I mean, The Substance does get kind of brutal there, so you're not wrong.
The Substance is very Vox Lux coded, so Corbet could go somewhere. Anyway.
Here is the big snub here, which we knew DGA typically does not go 5 for 5 with the Oscars. So we knew somebody was going to miss. I took out James Mangold in favor for Edward Berger from Conclave, just because I thought, well, he wasn't nominated for All Quiet on the Western Front. They're not going to snub him twice. But he has now 2 movies that have gotten significant support without a Best Director nomination, which is a surprising snub there. But, James Mangold, I mean, again, this is not my favorite movie of his, but when you look at his body of work, it's quite impressive. So I'm not surprised that the Best Director branch has sort of thrown him some love because this is his first directing nomination. But, what do you guys make of this category? Because I was shocked that Berger was the one who missed.
Yeah, I would have thought he would have gotten in over Mangold, but I love that Coralie shows up here. I think that's really exciting. Those were my 2 biggest things.
I think that I'm not blown away by Berger missing here. I think that I did predict that he would be here over James Mangold particularly. But I'm not blown away by it. I kind of feel like those 2 out of these 5, or I guess 6, if you're throwing Berger in the mix, probably split some votes potentially, kind of as the who else? I'm not super excited about this category. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's been a bit of a boring race since everybody thought it was going to be Sean Baker, and then it was suddenly Brady Corbet, and now it's kind of understood that it's probably Brady Corbet here, but then again, you could get a surprise in Jacques Audiard or even Coralie Farge. Could take The Substance all the way to the statuette, to the history books. So who knows? But yeah, I'm not surprised by Berger missing here. I'm not blown away that Mangold was the ultimate choice either.
And I do have to say, like, again, we're speaking of something that I'm very happy about. I mean, the substance, yes, it could have shown up in other categories, but a great day for that film in terms of actress, picture, screenplay, hair and makeup. Like this, I mean, it's a movie film. We cannot. It's such
Shout
a
out
small. Movie. It's such a small movie. I mean, a budget of $17.5 million for the amount of makeup and prosthetics and all these things. I mean, what they were able to achieve is absolutely incredible. And it's just such a feat for smaller films, for sort of the artistic vision of Coralie Farge. So just a really cool, like an amazing nomination, an amazing sort of feat for this film. And it should be celebrated. I really do think that. And if you haven't seen it, again, I know body horror isn't everyone's favorite thing. I would encourage you to push through. I think it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Okay, well, since you are our guest today, we'll give you the top category. Give us our 10 nominees for Best Picture.
All right. The 10 nominees are Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked, Anora, A Complete Unknown, The Brutalist, The Substance, I'm Still Here, Dune Part 2, and Nickel Boys. So just so people know, when we're reading these, we are reading in order of Shadan's predictions on InSessionFilm.com.
Which is probably going to change right after we get
That's
off.
quite all right. I think I have mostly been on board and on the same page as you in a lot of these categories, maybe with one or two swapped here. I'm blown away by this list.
Well, wait. Okay, let's get into because here's the thing. Conclave is, I would say, maybe a placeholder, but and maybe A Complete Unknown, I think should probably be higher just based on how well it did today. But I mean, I don't think The Brutalist is going to perform well on a preferential ballot. I don't think The Substance, for the same reason. Dune Part 2 did not have a great day. I'm Still Here, I think, just based on the passion, but I think it's going to come down to probably A Complete Unknown, Wicked, Conclave, Emilia Perez, and I think those 5.
I guess the preferential ballot point is a good one. I'm shocked by The Brutalist at 6, regardless of it not being number 1 or number 2 on people's ballots. I know we're not talking about who we think is going to win here. And maybe we should dive in more to what we think about this category in general, the films, rather than the rankings. But I think you're right, though. A Complete Unknown has a bit of a surge vibe to it right now.
A surge vibe. You feel good after you finish watching it. Everyone loves Bob Dylan. You like the songs. And speaking of the mood of where we are now, I don't think people want to vote for a movie that, is going to make them feel bad. And in terms of Emilia Perez, yes, the controversy, quote unquote, whatever, didn't matter in terms of nominations. Is that going to change a couple months from now? Who knows? But and then Conclave, I mean, it's kind of the middle of the road, dad. You can't really complain about Conclave. It's, a friend of mine called it elevated Dan Brown. I think that's a good way to describe it. Yeah. So let me ask you this, Will. If we were in the world of the old Academy and we had only 5 Best Picture nominees, who do you think The Brutalist would have been in your 5?
Yes. I think... This is a really good question. I honestly,
the question is what would be your 5, but the question is what do you think that what would the Academy 5?
Right, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. Honestly, I think it would be Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Emilia Perez, Conclave, and Emilia Perez. I was trying to do that in alphabetical order, but I did poorly. I think that would be my 5. I think it would be Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Amelia Perez. That time I got it right.
I think I would maybe sub out Honora for The Brutalist in terms of like the 5. I think Honora just because
I included both of them.
Oh, I mean, not a Amelia Perez. I'm sorry. I meant I would have put in Honora. I mean, taken out Honora, but left in Wicked. So I would have had Conclave, Amelia Perez, Wicked, and
maybe you're right.
I mean, and The Brutalist.
You don't think The Substance would have done well with the old Academy?
I don't think. I mean, like I said, I'm surprised it did well with this Academy, let alone the old one. I think
awesome that it did.
Yeah,
it would have given some of those.
Whatever you feel about that movie, it's so cool that it's everywhere. 5 nominations for that movie from Mubi. It's awesome.
It would have given some of those older members a heart attack. I want to talk about I'm Still Here for a second because this was the big shocker of the morning. Can we agree?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and maybe it shouldn't have been. Maybe it shouldn't have been. We've talked so much about that international and specifically Brazilian contingent. They aren't just on Twitter; they're everywhere. And with when it came to Fernanda Torres, it was the fervor was off the charts. Maybe it shouldn't be that much of a surprise that, like you kind of said earlier, there was a bit of a carryover effect with her performance, because her performance is really the center of that movie, emotionally and just plot wise. So the fact that you follow that along and you kind of walk away being like, wow, that was great, maybe even because you're a little transfixed by the Torres performance in and of itself, it certainly elevated the movie for me. Maybe it shouldn't be that much of a surprise that it showed up here. I think it's certainly would I have rather seen Sing Sing here? Yes, but I would have rather seen Sing Sing here over a number of other movies before I would have bumped out I'm Still Here. I just mentioned that because it's the surprise, as we said.
Right. Well, what do you think of A Real Pain? And I do think, that was one of the movies that was sort of on the lower half of the list, but it getting PGA, I think, was a big get for that film. So what do you think of that film missing?
I tend to kind of think of the PGA as just I made a B-side joke earlier, so I'll try not to do it again. Not even elevated, but like a secondary AFI, maybe even National Board of Review a little bit. I just kind of, not that bad, but bad. Not even bad, just kind of like, okay, shrug. And so I don't necessarily always read too far in, even though they are a very good precursor. I just don't always go, okay, that's going to be the 10. So that A Real Pain missed here. Maybe there was just a feeling amongst people of like, all right, so this is Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg, and that's your movie. For a lot of people, that worked really well. For others, maybe it fell a little short in terms of, to use the title of another movie in this category, less substance than they would have hoped for. Nobody explodes in that movie out of many orifices. So I don't know, maybe that was just something that was missing from, you'll have to stay tuned for the second part of Wicked, but nobody melted either. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just think maybe it just, I'm putting words in voters' mouths, but The Real Pain to me was a good movie that was really driven by its central performance. And maybe the same goes for I'm Still Here, but maybe there's just that international contingent was like, we're carrying this thing. And then the contingent that was really hot on A Real Pain didn't come through. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. That's the other thing about A Real Pain. I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, I like that. But I have not heard a lot of people be like, God, you know what you need to see? A Real Pain. You know what you need to watch right now? A Real Pain. I've heard a lot of people be like, yeah, I saw it. It's good. Kieran Culkin's really good. That's just my experience, though.
Well, you know what I wonder, and we talked about this with Cameron on the last podcast. Obviously, things in LA have been devastating, and there's a lot of talk of like maybe the American contingent has just not had enough time or was not able to vote in higher numbers, and so we see the international contingent. That's because my whole argument against Sebastian Stan was, well, an American voting body isn't going to want to be as open to voting for that, somebody playing Donald Trump. But if you have your international contingent that's maybe carrying a big number of these votes, then it makes sense that he gets in. It makes sense that, I'm Still Here does better than expected. So maybe that's kind of what we saw in some of these categories where we saw a little bit of quote unquote surprises, which to your point, Will, I mean, everyone that got in, it was like, they were number 6 or number 7. There was nobody that, kind of came out of left field completely.
My only thing with the Sebastian Stan thing is they don't want to vote for the guy playing Donald Trump, but they want to vote for the Wicked Witch of the West. What are we doing here?
all of our great American villains need to be represented. Yes. Will, I don't know.
I support women's rights and wrongs.
Yes, and another for Amelia Perez. Erica, what do you think?
Oh, what was the question? What do I think about? What do I think about the Best Picture nominations? Yeah. Is that where we're at still?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Back to Real Pain. I watched it for the first time last night. I loved it. I said to Shadan before you got on today, before we started recording, I think so far, based on the films I've seen, now there is a good handful of I know that are really good films that I have not seen yet. Honestly, it's really up there for me because something that I take into consideration when I watch any film is its rewatchability. And I feel like A Real Pain has so much rewatchability.
This is true.
That I do think, while I'm not like, oh my God, stop everything you're doing and watch Wicked like I am with Wicked, I am when you get a chance, watch A Real Pain. It's great. It's streaming on Hulu. I think you should see it. Which I do think kind of goes a long way in the sense that you're like, it's a 90-minute film. It's fun. It's heartwarming. It will, it does. I think it checks a lot of boxes for a lot of different people. I loved it. I had really high expectations because I have heard so many people, like you're saying, say, I liked it. It was really good. Kieran Culkin's really good. You should watch it. Which I think is maybe more appealing than, like some of these films you have to warn people, right? Like your friends that maybe aren't cinephiles that, oh my gosh, I've heard so much about that. Like I had this happen with a friend, like, it was like, oh, I'm so excited for The Brutalist. I've heard so much about it. And I was like, yeah, you're tracking that it's almost 4 hours long, correct? And it was like, whoa, no, what are you talking about? Yeah, there's an intermission. It's that long. So like, I think there's something to be said for these films that, again, like I said, I take a lot of consideration into the rewatchability of it all. So all of that to say, I haven't seen Sing Sing. I haven't seen The Brutalist. I haven't seen I'm Still Here. I haven't seen Nickel Boys. Like there's all these like really big films that have been on my list for so long that either haven't come out in the theater yet near me, or you know what I mean? These things that I'm now looking forward to that I would have, but frankly, I would have seen whether they were nominated or not. So, but that's the thing where it's like, not everyone's like me. Like people are going to see these because now they're nominated. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be, and I'm sorry, I'm going to just say it. I'm scared Amelia Perez is going to win Best Picture. I'm scared.
That's why, Will, I have it ranked at number 2 right now.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
There's a shot, and I'm not brave enough to put it in the number 1 spot. I don't know if I ever will be because, like I said, a preferential ballot. But I think, like, with the way the temperature is now, if you had Best Picture tomorrow, who knows?
I'd put it number 1 right now.
Yeah. Actually, the contingent for Amelia Perez is Will Bjarnar. People just don't know that.
Well, I can tell that pains you to say that.
Yeah,
I can see the pain, the physical pain.
Yeah, it sucks.
And I'm right there with you because I'm terrified it's going to win. I'm scared. I'll just say
no,
it.
but I mean, to the last thing I'll say on this is to your point, Erica. You know, a lot of it was mentioned earlier, kind of like how whether or not something gets in best editing isn't gonna necessarily sway somebody at home who's wondering what they should see. But you know what is effective and still commonplace is those ads, whether it's on TV or streaming or online, that says Amelia Perez nominated for 13 Oscars. And you know what? It's going to be Nickel Boys nominated for 2 Oscars, including Best Picture. Now that's crap for the record, but it's effective. So,
and I said it
Wicked nominated for 10 Oscars. Like,
yeah, I mean that's why these nominations matter. That's why, like I said, I feel like these nominations are an endorsement, and it's significant, whether it's for the career of their filmmakers, whether it's for people watching them. Yeah, absolutely. I do, before we head out, I want to ask you guys, because like we said, there's so many wonderful films that did not get anything. If you had maybe 1 or 2 films that you could advocate for people as they are catching up on films from last year, nominated films, etc., what would that film be that you hope? Because one message that I want to get across is, just because a movie did not get the nominations you were hoping for does not mean that it's not worth watching.
Correct.
And that does not take away the value, the artistic achievement. So for me, a film that nobody is talking about, and they've completely forgotten because it came out at TIFF last year, was The Beast. I think it's currently streaming on Hulu. It's a French film. I just love this movie. It stars Léa Seydoux, and I really like it. It's one of those movies that has stuck in my brain, and I hope people get a chance to see it, even though it did not come anywhere near the awards conversation this year. What is that film for you guys?
The Beast is a great call. It was one of my favorite films of last year. It's streaming on the Criterion channel right now, and you could rent it.
Yeah,
you can rent it very easily for $4. Erica, you go first. I gotta think about this.
I know. I've been trying to think, also because there's again, so many things I feel like I haven't seen. I think I'll just mention this one because I did just watch it recently, and I think everyone thought it was going to be a much bigger contender, bigger talked about film that didn't show up anywhere today, is Saturday Night. While I don't think it's I'm not going to say again, stop everything you're doing and watch it, but it's a fine watch. I am such a production nerd. I love anything that's behind the scenes. So if you like something like that, I think you'll love that movie because it's chaos of live television behind the scenes leading up to, the first episode of Saturday Night Live, which I don't care who you are in the world, you've seen an episode of, right? And I just think it is interesting. While I don't think it's as good as I wanted it to be or as good as it could have been, and it for whatever reason didn't land with other people either, I do think it is a fine watch. Again, I watched it and I was like, okay, yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, I love the behind the scenes stuff. Not surprised that it didn't show up anywhere today, but I think it's one of those that when it was first talked about and first coming out, I think it was one of those that people thought were going to do much bigger and better than it actually did. But it's still a fine, it's gonna, you don't have anything else to watch on a rainy Sunday afternoon, turn it on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. We've mentioned a few of the ones that I would throw out there. We've briefly mentioned Queer. We've talked about Challengers a lot, but I feel like a lot of people have seen that. Furiosa, same deal. There's a couple that I could throw out there. And I think I'm going to just... I mean, I saw the TV Glow is a big one for me. It's not an Oscar movie. Jane Schoenbrunn, the director, they even tweeted statement from Jane Schoenbrunn makes a statement in response to being goose egged at the Oscars. Yeah, I mean that makes sense, or something along those lines. Like that's what they wrote. It's a really beautiful movie about identity and finding yourself, and it was one of my favorites of last year. You know what I'll throw out there that just in a similar vein to Challengers for me, like my Challengers thoughts on it not getting anything here is, do you just not like? Did anybody go see Challengers and be like, you know what? Yeah, I didn't like that. It wasn't very good. Like who watched Challengers was like, meh.
Me, I kind of didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to.
I was hoping that didn't happen.
I'm sorry. I enjoyed it, but I also left it kind of just feeling like, I think it was also because I had through the roof expectations for it.
Fair enough.
And I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. However, I would still say, again, watch it. I loved the score. I thought the score was the best part of it, if I'm being honest.
It's a great score. I'll just throw out the movie I was referring to is Hitman.
Oh, I loved Hitman.
Yeah.
I think Hitman rocks, and you can watch it on your couch right now.
I loved Hitman, yeah.
Talk about inspired nominations. Like that getting into adapted screenplay would have been really cool.
Oh my God.
Would have been great. You know who you would have had at the Oscar? Well,
Glenn Powell.
Still be there, but co-writer of Hitman, Glenn Powell.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, good movie. You can watch it right now. People are idiots.
So good.
Chipper podcasting for me today. Sorry. It's good. It's good content.
Come back, Will.
It's okay, Will. You're in your feels.
Yeah, Shadan's like, geez, this was a mistake.
I'm riding high because Wicked got 10 nominations, so I'm happy girl for a while.
I'm so thrilled for you. Hey, did they let you know your check was in the mail? Like, what's up with that?
I wish, man. I wish. I will say I was really disappointed that John Chu didn't show up in directing.
I'm really sorry about that.
That bummed me out. Yeah. Bummed me out. But I'm happy you got 10 nominations. That makes me really happy. So
I'm happy that it didn't show up in cinematography, because as much as I do like Wicked, but if it would have shown up in cinematography, I would have.
I don't think it was ever going to show up there. Yeah, I don't think it was ever going to show up there. There was way too much talk about how it shouldn't show up there. So
if Wicked had showed up in cinematography and Nickel Boys didn't, I think I would have canceled.
Yeah.
You know, like what happened to Will? Just
he's done. He's done with the movies.
He's hiding between the couch cushions and the air conditioner. Like he's never going to see him again.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Is that the point of positivity that we would like to wrap on today?
No, look. Hey, I love the Oscars. As much as I complain about them, this is one of my favorite times of the year, being able to talk about this stuff. And again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. As depressed as I truly, truly am, a lot of this is performative. Take it with a grain of salt.
I think about it the same way I think about like my sports fandom, right? Like the Ravens have broken my heart for the past, couple years, and I still keep coming back, right? Like we're still going to keep coming back to the Oscars every year to see. Oh man, Will, come on. You had to do that right now. Tell the listeners. He's holding a little tiny Buffalo Bills football in my face right now. Just well, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to be back next year. Yeah.
We'll see you then.
If it makes you feel better, Erica, my Texans, at least the Ravens stood a chance. My Texans would have never come close against the Chiefs, so it is what it is. Just given up a long time ago.
Just a bunch of AFC playoff
But it is, I think of it that way, right? Where it's like, even when the Oscars disappoint me, I'm still going to come back because I still love the movies. I'm still a cinephile, just in the same way that I am a diehard Baltimore sports girly. Like, I'm still going to be a fan. Yeah, we can complain as much as we want about the Oscars. We're still going to come back every year. And like you said, this is the fun of it all. We get to talk about it and, you know, make fun predictions. And yeah, it's a great time. It's a great time of year. You know, we're all cold inside, catch up on all the films, and get excited because it's going to be, I think it's going to be really fun Oscars night too.
And every once in a while, you get a Fernanda Torres or some just, you know, the Like a Bird from just these like nominations. And you're just like, that is freaking cool. And that is why we do this and why we've been here for 2.5 hours. And if you've been with us, thank you for sticking with us. I do just have to say, this is my first year, again, being the awards editor at In Session Film. So I get to work with a lot of cool people like Will, for better or worse. I don't know. Well, I'm going to send out, I think, like an editor survey. So I'm going to see who I'm going to do. It's going to be anonymous. I'm going to see, get some feedback. But no, it's been a really, really fun season. I get to work with really, really cool people. I'm so proud of the articles that have gone up, the work that the writers have done. It's just been so much fun. And, you know, my predictions, I think I did okay. And yeah, it's just going to be really fun to look forward to phase 2. So just from a like professional, personal standpoint, it's just been really special and really cool. So in addition to sticking with us for 2.5 hours, if you've been with us all season, I just feel really, really grateful and excited to see where the rest of the road takes us.
Ditto that.
You should be proud of yourself, Shadan. You've done a lot of hard work.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. As have you guys. As have the whole team. It's been really cool to work with everybody.
Well, of course, follow In Session Film on all the platforms and all the things. Will, where can everyone follow you?
Yeah, Twitter, X, whatever that is. You could just search my name, Will Bjarnar. I'll show up. Same goes for Blue Sky, Letterboxd, Instagram, even though I don't do much over there, but come on by if you want. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm writing for In Session Film, Geek Vibes Nation, Next Best Picture, all sorts of stuff. A lot of Sundance coverage for In Session. So
yes, I was going to point that out. That Will is being like really humble right now because I think you have like 20 reviews or something that
I don't know.
So a lot of
I do this to myself.
A lot of Sundance coverage for most. So we're gonna have to actually have you come back to talk about Sundance.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of stuff, a lot of really cool stuff, and you're a fantastic writer. So
thank you so much.
Thank you for all the hard work that you do because it's a joy.
Always happy to do it. Thanks for having me on, both of you. And go Bills.
No! Ouch! 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 All right, we'll see you next time. Again, thanks for listening to Chasing the Cold. I'm done. Goodbye. All right, that's a wrap. Good night. I don't know. It's not gonna get only gonna go down from here, I guess. Have a good night.
That was awesome.